All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome again to the Town of Holden Beach Board of Commissioners Parking Committee. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for being here this morning. If you would, I think everybody's got a microphone. Let's go around the room real quick and just let everybody say who's here in the meeting. So, Mr. Evans, we'll start with you and go around the room.
Tim Evans, I'm here.
Chris Clemens. Brian Murdoch.
David Hewitt.
Christy Ferguson.
Jeremy Dixon.
Whoa. All right, thank y'all for being here once again on a Friday morning, and hopefully everybody listening to Facebook can hear us. I'd like to remind the attendees to speak into the microphones and get as close as you can. After every meeting, I get email complaints with folks saying they can't hear us. So once again, when you're talking, get right into the microphone. All right, public comments. Ms. Town Clerk, do we have any public comments?
We have one that I provided to everybody. Do you want me to read it?
If you would, so the folks that are on Facebook can hear what the comments are.
Sure. My name is Bob Bender, and I'm a new homeowner in Holden Beach. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on the proposed public parking facility at Ocean Boulevard West, Brunswick Avenue West. I am strongly against this proposal. This space is 2 doors down from the property that I just purchased for a large sum of money. This represents a significant investment for me and my family. This development would not only hurt my property value and the other homes around it, it would also impact the ability to generate rental income. This is due to a host of undesirable issues that the facility would bring to the area. There are issues that we should all be concerned about and impact the community. They include more traffic and congestion, ugly public facilities like a porta potty and municipal garbage cans on site that we have to see 24/7. Sorry, can't breathe in this. You're good, thank you.
More garbage in the area that will ultimately end up on properties in the area. More noise that we don't want. People coming and going at all hours. Potential safety issues with pedestrians. More opportunity for car break-ins and other crime in my immediate area. We invested in Holden Beach because it's a quiet family beach. Can we please keep it this way and do not install a public parking facility 2 doors down from my new home? Thank you, respectfully, Bob Bender.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm assuming from this email, Mr. Evans, he's probably talking about the cross streets between OBW and Brunswick Avenue that we're looking at.
I guess that's what you're talking about as far as parking facilities.
Yeah.
There's a proposed parking lot that the parking committee is looking at, but don't know there's a facility going there.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. All right. You had the agenda in front of you. We've already been through the first couple of items. We'll approve the minutes of the meeting in just a few minutes. Then we'll turn it over to Mr. Evans to go through the deliverables that we had planned for this meeting that we discussed in our previous meeting. Then after that, we'll talk about what's next. What do we want to look at next? What do we want to investigate next? What do we do with the recommendation or the information that Mr. Evans has put together for us? So item number 6 will be where we'll decide what's coming next. What do we work on next? And then 7 is adjournment. So that is the agenda.
Move to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Town Manager Hewitt. And
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Murdoch. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, all opposed say nay. All right, one of the things I did want to do is just before we get started, remind everybody what the charter is for this committee. We need to keep focused on that because that's the deliverables that we want to go back to the Board of Commissioners with. And these are in no particular order or ranked by priority or anything. This is just the items that we came up with. First one is a paid parking evaluation. Where do we want to look at paid parking? How? So forth. Partnership with Holden Beach Pier on paid parking. Mr. Gil Bass has approached us about being interested in doing a partnership with the town on paid parking there at the pier. Boat trailer parking concerns, if Block Q is sold, as most of you know, on a Friday, Saturday, on the weekends, and particularly during the summer days, there's a lot of boat trailers that are parked all over the place under the bridge and even on private property. And one of our concerns is that that private property gets sold, where does all those boat trailers go? Looking at Jordan Boulevard and looking at potentially redesigning it to provide more parking spaces. Review of Avenue A, potential traffic pattern change, and looking at East End parking. And then the last one, which was the focus of today's meeting, is maximizing the existing property the town owns and what it would look like to convert some of that to parking. So that, once again, that's our charter. That's what we want to stay focused on. Any questions about the charter? All right, thank you. We'll go on to the next agenda item is approval of the minutes. Ms. Town Clerk?
They were included in the packet, so if the board.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
I got a motion by the town manager to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Murdock. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, thank you very much. All right, item number 5 on the agenda, review of deliverables planned for completion at the January 8th meeting. I'm going to turn this over to Town Manager Hewitt and Planning Director Tim Evans.
Okay, at the last parking committee meeting, the staff was put in charge of some taskers. When it came to the parking, we were asked to develop cost estimates and number of spaces, including bulkheads in the properties in the 800 block. At that time, I'm not sure everyone was aware that there's actually 2 little parcels of property down there. So we covered the second one, although it was not included. Develop cost estimates and number of spaces for paving through streets between Ocean Boulevard West and Brunswick Avenue West. Develop cost estimates for angle parking spots on Avenue A, and investigate the potential for using the space formerly known as Hillside Drive. What we did under that tasker was that because we were just simply putting the information together, we used the available materials that we had. These are estimates. They're the best that we could do with the information that we had, but we think the information we used was relevant. I'll start with the through street at between 340 OBW and I think it's 349 BAW. That particular street is known as Reserve 12 on our town map. It is, the developable area there is approximately 15,000 square feet. We believe that we can get 25 parking spots there. The paving cost would be an estimation of $72,000. The estimated cost per space is $2,880, and there wouldn't be any DEQ requirements for stormwater, because that disturbed area is less than an acre. We would still have to comply with the town stormwater rules under phase 2. The next street, are there any questions on that street? The next street is between 317 BAW and 318 OBW. And if you look back at Reserve 12, you'll notice that there's a directional arrow for one way, and that we've actually allotted enough area for a sidewalk on the opposite side. That's what that blue and red line are indicative of, and some setbacks there. So you'll have one row of parking, and then you can have a sidewalk on the other side, and then some free open area beyond your paving location. We did the same thing on 11A. It has the same square footage. It has the same parking spots at 25. Paving cost is the same at 72,000. The estimated cost per space is still $2,880, and it has to meet the same stormwater requirements as Reserve 12. Are there any questions about those two streets?
Tim, would you comment on the dimensions of what that is, like the right-of-way width and the travel lane?
Both of those streets are 60 feet wide. Those areas are 60 feet wide, and we're proposing to use 50 feet. That'll be the area that we actually pave. And the parking places themselves will be between 14 and 18 feet long, allowing for enough space, 20 feet, and then we have the sidewalk in the other area to back yourself out. Thus the one-way street. We did it, we one-wayed those two streets based on traffic flow, how to keep it best moving. If you can't find a parking place in one place, then you can go down to the next. Well, we already have directional arrows that were in place from the last parking committee that directs parking in that direction down the main street. It's right out there at the end of when you come off the bridge. So we believe that that's a really good estimate as to what we can do there. And also, if you'll take notice, based on the way that those parking areas are in there, we should not be interfering with any traffic as far as line of sight at the end. Mm-hmm. We took that into consideration so that we would be in compliance with our own ordinance. Okay, so is there any questions on those two? Any more?
On Reserve 12, you said the blue line is a sidewalk?
Yeah, we put a sidewalk in there. The other one's the same way, I just left that line out.
Okay.
That's basically the end of your backing area. And then I stuck the other line in there because we don't know exactly where we want to put that sidewalk in relationship to how much setback we have. Because we may want to move the parking places, have a setback between the parking places and the properties on the right, and then with a sidewalk in front of them, and then have the backing area as a buffer between the properties on the left, if you're looking at this picture. Be the same on the other one. Okay. Does that make sense? In other words, we left room in there for us to make a discernible pattern when we decide to do something.
Okay.
Because ultimately, you're going to have these laid out by a surveyor and an engineer. We'll move on to the next portion. I apologize for not being in order with the tasker, but I guess when I put them together, I was so excited that I got it done. I wasn't paying attention to what order I put them in. Lots 810 through 822. This particular area will require a bulkhead. We've got estimated 342 linear feet of bulkhead there, and we expect to be able to get 31 parking places. The cost per parking spaces there is $2,000. We're going to have a commercial base there with 6 inches of slate. That'll meet the camera requirements. The cost estimate for that would be $32,000 for the base. Cost estimate for the bulkhead is $30,780, and there'll be 31 parking spaces. And like I said, the cost per parking space is $2,000. Now, in this particular set of lots, if you'll notice, there are some dry land above those proposed parking spaces that we put in there. I, myself, a surveyor may be able to ascertain a way to get to those to make a few more parking places, but in the context of planning outside of the committee, I would think that area may be better served as a small park or with picnic tables or something to that effect, because I'm not sure how you would align those parking places and not have a dangerous situation with people backing up, kids running through joint parking places. But it may be possible, but not without some trueness on the ground.
Okay.
We were real conservative in the approach here also. If you notice that, you know, the commercial base or slate rock, this is near an area of environmental concern, so you can't pave it. And we were just wanting to make sure that we were very conservative with the approach there and try to avoid any issues from the get-go.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's was our main focus in that section, as well as the other little section. But I think that, this is a pretty good depiction of what we can do down there. 31 parking spaces is a good start there. The next area is Avenue A, and we have a couple things there. The one thing I want you to notice there before I go through the numbers is that the CAMA may not allow any foreign material in this area because it's close to the ocean erodible area in the AEC, and we have our real concerns. We almost think that's not going to happen. So if you'll notice, I put both. I put the cost for paving and the cost for commercial base, so that we wouldn't have any misleading numbers as far as this estimate. So we got 10,000 square feet there. We have 50 feet. This one is 50 feet wide. And we'll be able to get 22 parking spaces. We figure the cost for paving would be $48,000, and the cost for a commercial base with rock would be $25,000. Avenue A, there is a sidewalk that runs on the street on the bottom side next to the ocean. And so I put a double line in there as well. That one's going to be tight, but I think we can get a sidewalk in there. We just have to see how much of our right-of-way area will get utilized. And once again, take notice that we were very careful to look out for the site triangle, because there's quite a few people that's parking on that street. The next piece is the piece that I'm not sure that people were aware that we own this, but there's a small section at 764 OBW. We took it upon ourselves to include this. We can get 12 parking spaces in there. The bulkhead length for that one would be 170 feet. The bulkhead cost would be $15,300. Cost per parking space would be $2,108. And of course, the commercial base cost is $10,000. And that's a little area, but that one, if you look at it, it lines up pretty good to have people go in, park, and come back out. And it too will have a little bit of dry area for maybe a picnic area or a buffer to the AEC. The back page is an actual listing of the cost estimates, so that you can run through those. We actually used the paving numbers that we have got for estimates for the other streets to come up with the paving cost estimates, and we actually engaged a contractor who does local contracting work to give us the cost estimate on the commercial base with 6 inches. The rest of those numbers we laid out and gave it our best guess for parking spaces and bulkhead length. Okay. Like I said, without spending some money, you're not going to be able to true this on site.
Yep.
That's the end. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I got one. Did you look at, I know it's in a flood zone, I know that I have to be elevated, but is there any possibility of putting restroom facilities at any of these spots?
We could put, there might be a possible at 800, in the 800 block, to provide a restroom there, but you're going to have to follow the ASCE 24 requirements, and it's going to have to be a flood-proof structure, and those get expensive. Because without that, it's not going to meet our own NFIP requirements. In other words, other than that, you're going to have to lift it, and that entails handicap access. Once you get above ground, we gotta provide handicap access. Handicap access is relatively easy with it at grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if I've done my math right, it looks like with all these possibilities, we're looking at 115 parking spots.
That's what I got.
How much?
120, I think.
120, okay, I must have missed some.
I could be wrong.
I got 115, Woody, so.
Now, those are estimated parking spaces, because it's not trued on the ground yet.
Yeah,
It's pretty
yeah.
close.
Yeah, it's just estimated, I understand.
Yeah, because we divided the area by what we had. So
Yep.
should be pretty close. In other words, if you end up with some more or less.
Yeah, we understand, everybody understands this is just a swag.
Yeah.
All right, any questions about what Mr. Evans has presented to us? Any comments or concerns about what he has presented as potential or possibilities? All right, thank y'all. All right, number 6 on our agenda.
Mr. Tyner,
Yes, sir.
I know Mr. Evans presented cost estimates on the first 3 sub-bullets, but the 4th sub-bullet about addressing the Hillside Drive and Ocean Boulevard
Thank you.
East, that piece of property is owned by J. Holden, and is part of the parcel of that large tract of land that extends on out to the ocean. I contacted him, and that is part of a longer-term plan
Okay.
per him.
All right, so that one, thank you for pointing that out. That one is off the table. All right. All right. Mr. Evans, we thank you for putting the time in to get these estimates together for us. Once again, we all understand it's a swag. It could go up or go down if we get serious about doing these. All right. Once again, item number 6 on the agenda is discussion and termination of work efforts for February 2020. First of all, Mr. Evans, do you think is there any more work that needs to be done on the 3 bullet points we came up with from the last meeting? Anything else you want to do in those areas?
No. I mean,
Okay.
there's nothing that, without us having a more definitive set of guidelines, that's not much more I can do there.
Okay, all right. Well, this is the point in the meeting where we go back and look at the charter and we talk about, okay, what do we want to do next? You know, one question is, what do we want to do with the information that Mr. Evans has put together for us? And then secondly, what is the next thing on our charter that we want to start looking at and working on during the month of February? So I am open to anybody and everybody's comments, suggestions about what we should work on this coming month on this charter.
I can go first. I'll go back to my biggest concern, that's the boat ramp. I don't know who we need to talk to. I don't know who needs to be the contact person. I don't know how to go about it, but I would like to address it.
Okay.
I don't know where they're gonna park. If Block Q is indeed sold, I don't know where they're gonna park. I haven't a clue. I'm open to suggestions, but it's gonna filter to Jordan Boulevard somehow or another, and Jeremy, I mean, where are they gonna go? You've seen it firsthand, so it's definitely gonna be an issue. I mean, if that property's sold and somebody puts a silk fence or something up around it, I mean, we're in trouble. So I don't know how to address that.
Mr. Hewitt, do we have a contact with the Wildlife Commission that we could start some conversations on that issue? Is their boat ramp, and, you know, quite honestly, it looks like they didn't provide for enough boat trailer parking.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we can find a point of contact. What do we want to say? Would be my question, is what do we want to tell them?
Well, I think what we want to tell them is that, you know, I don't know if we got pictures to show them or not from the previous summer, or if anybody's taken any pictures, but we need to at least have a conversation. At least this is my opinion. We need to have a conversation with them and say, you know, on a Saturday, Sunday during the summer, you know, they're parking all over this property, and, you know, the parking lot for boat trailers here is that they own today, or that they're using today, is too small. And is there any availability or any help from them that we can get before we reach the problem stage of there's no parking for those boat trailers?
It'd be nice if they considered buying that, if they would consider buying that property for a parking lot, but you know, that's kinda sounds, that's a shot in the dark, but I guess maybe we explain to them that's for sale. Once it's gone, we're gonna have a boat ramp there with no parking, it's gonna be kinda useless.
Yep. Well, I think the bigger issue is the boat trailers will show up and park where today we have cars parking, and then we won't have any place for the cars when the folks are coming over for the day, come over to park, they'll be all filled with boat trailers. So I think one suggestion that I'm hearing from Commissioner Murdoch is we need to identify a point of contact and see if we can have a meeting, discussions, conference call with them, and ask them to come down and hear our concerns and see what the possibilities are of addressing them.
Anyway, that was one. The second being Jordan Boulevard and marking. I know a lot of them are marked and are obvious, but when you get down toward the pavilion and the DOT right away and all that stuff, I mean, what do we actually have there? And I know there's a tract of land, correct me if I'm wrong, David, I believe, in front of Bridgewater.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
think-
much that corner right yonder. you
Look
know.
at using that lot possibly for some more parking there. Hopefully we get our concerts back and all that, and you know how busy it is then. And same thing, we're parking on a lot of, they are parking on a lot of private property during that time period that could go away. So just looking past that. But those two things, if we're gonna move onwards, is my suggestion, but you guys, the table's open to anything else.
I would like to go ahead and let's start talking about paid parking evaluation. In your packet was an article that I sent the town clerk where Curie Beach was looking at paid parking. Well, they have approved paid parking. Surf City, I think, has approved paved parking, so it's slowly coming down the beach. And one of the charter items here was us to learn more about paid parking and do an evaluation of it. So I'd like to go ahead and maybe see if we can schedule, if nothing else, a couple vendors just to come in and talk to us about what they could do for us and what the requirements might be. And then we might want to put out, you know, a proper request for quote or RFP or something, depending upon what the Board of Commissioners gives us direction to do. But I think we need to at least start the education process on that issue. All right. So if we look at those three items, once again, we don't want to try to swallow the whole elephant, but if we look at those three items, Mr. Hewitt, can you work on the Wildlife Commission point of contact and see if we can schedule some conversations with them?
Yes, do you want that dialogue to be inclusive of the entire committee, or who do you want talking to the Wildlife Commission?
I'm open to your suggestion.
I don't mind doing that.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mind having that if anybody wants to sit in on, you know, a teleconference.
I want
it's
you
fine.
I want you to get it scheduled and just let us know, and whoever's available can come and listen in.
Okay. And the things that we want to talk about is that the parking up there is inadequate. Is there any help we can get from, you know, the wildlife? Do they have any plans? You know, I don't know if they've got any plans, you know, in the works to improve that. What might be the opportunity for some type of state grant to do that? I don't know, but that's the type of
That's
things
exactly
we
right.
want to talk. Okay.
Is that correct?
They may be thinking about even building another one across the waterway. We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. We'll run somebody down that can speak
yeah.
for wildlife on that.
And if you haven't seen it, go over to the wildlife ramp there near the back of Brick Landing. That's a nice, you know, it probably holds 40, 50 boat trailers and vehicles. So they did a nice job over there. So maybe we can get them to.
They got some really nice ones.
Look here.
There's a nice one there along Beach Road too. It's got probably about an acre of parking. That's a fine boat ramp.
Yep.
But in all reality, you know, like I said, that property gets sold, that's a useless boat ramp, because there
Yep.
ain't nowhere to park, period.
That's my thinking.
Yep.
This is probably for Heather, maybe David. All these preliminary drawings and stuff, I know people are complaining to me day in and day out about not being able to hear us and see us and whatnot, or comment. Can we put them on the website?
The ones that Tim just reviewed, they're already on.
They're on the
Okay.
website.
I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to look at them, that's all.
They're under the Board of Commissioners page, and it just says Parking Committee on it.
All right, thank you.
Today's date.
Yeah, for those of y'all listening in on Facebook, if you couldn't hear the town clerk, the materials that we are reviewing today are on the town's website, hbtownhall.com. And if you go to the Commissioners tab, Board of Commissioners tab, on that first page is the link to all the materials we're covering today if you want to see the diagrams. All right, so we got the town manager Hewitt's gonna help us with the boat ramp. Paid parking, I'll be glad to call I think the Curie Beach used, somebody called elite parking or something like that. I'll be glad.
Premium parking.
Premium park, excuse me. I'll be glad to make contact with them and see if we can get them to come to our next meeting to give us an education. If that's okay with everybody? All right.
And this is Brian again. I'd like, when everybody looks at these proposed parking spots, that we don't have any plans as of yet to pursue any of them. And also, if you say you don't want them, if you could provide some suggestion as to some alternative, we're always open to suggestions. In fact, I've gotten some pretty good ones. Alternatives, so give us your opinion, because we're here. I know we're all sitting in a room, but if we could have you all here, then we would, but we can't. So write it down, send it to us. You know, you may have a good idea that we're not thinking about.
Yep. All right, and then the last one that Commissioner Murdoch mentioned was Jordan Boulevard. I know a number of years ago, North Carolina State and some other firm. I believe we got a grant to help look at a redesign of Jordan Boulevard. I don't know if there's any opportunities there to maybe have somebody help us just kind of look at it again, or do we just take the drawing we got, and I know it needs to be reworked, but at least use it as an idea of what we might want to do. Maybe Mr. Evans can look at it and give us an idea of maybe what the cost might be. I don't know what the possibilities are there. Once again, I'm open to suggestions from anybody about how we maybe start looking at Jordan Boulevard.
This is Tim Evans. The plan that was developed for Jordan Boulevard was done, actually, it was, I think, a volunteer group. It was not, I don't know that it was commissioned, but the actual plan itself was so much similar to what I just proposed, until I would recommend, we could probably use it maybe as a template, but I would recommend, if you're really thinking about doing something on Jordan Boulevard, that we come up with a plan similar to what we have, and then once again get a true sense of what's on the ground, and engage another firm to maybe provide a design there. There's been numerous changes that would have affected that design, but even if a lot of people see that design, it's nice, it's pretty, but if you read the design, the actual design itself, they tell you that it's never been trued either. That there's everything from environmental concerns that were not taken into consideration to property lines to easements. It's written right on the front of it. So I would, you could use it for a template, but if I was thinking about Jordan Boulevard from a planning standpoint, I don't know that I would go beyond it for a template, and if you decided to go that route, get it better trued and get a better idea of what you want, and then hire an outside firm to develop something that large, I think would be the best plan of action there. In other words, I think you're gonna have to fire a bullet out of the gun on that one if you want to really get something there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, when you turn in off the Patient Boulevard going down Jordan, the left side is pretty much, the way it's landscaped and everything, all that's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, thinking maybe the, biggest focus would be to focus on that right side, because that right of way is pretty wide back up against those businesses and the houses right there. That's a pretty good, available space for extra parking. And just that improvement alone would change the appearance of Jordan Boulevard a great deal. It's just my opinion, but I really feel like Jordan Boulevard and that boat ramp, in my opinion, is one of our biggest, probably on the importance level is probably higher than anything I can think of, but that's just my opinion.
Well, and going back to the boat ramp from a planning standpoint, when I think about the boat ramp and what we would like to see there and what the problems are there, it would be interesting to know during that initial conversation what actually was planned there. What was their plan when they put that there, and has it never come to full fruition, or did something hinder them from making available more parking? I know that most of these boat ramps that we have in the county that have come through the state have ample parking with them. If you go look at them, every single one of them, even the one on the Waccamaw River, has got more parking than you could possibly ever use. So it'd be interesting to know what that plan was. You know what I mean? That boat ramp may have been built with the sole intentions of local use, I guess is the best way to put it, because there's really nowhere to park. So it'd be interesting to know what their intentions were, because if their original plan and their original approvals called for that type of use, then they'll have to change that in order to change their plan. Well, it'd be interesting to know what the actual concept was.
For what's available there parking wise, you call it a kayak launch, because that's about what, about what it was.
Well, and you don't know that ain't what they had planned, is small boats and kayak launches, or it was put there for convenience so that their other boat ramps, say at Brick Landing, don't overflow with boats that could be, you know, moved back to beach houses and parked. It could have been put there based on the fact that we have a number of canals where boats can be left as a launching point for locals.
Yeah.
Put their boats in and out, but you need to know, because if we go in there and ask, why don't you have parking places, and they come back with a resolution that came from the town that said that that was something they wanted to see, then you're gonna have your answer, and you're starting off on a bad foot, I believe. We need to find out what the original plan was there.
Yeah, before we start pointing fingers.
Well, before you start asking for stuff.
Yeah.
Because you might already ask for what, you might already got what you asked for.
Yeah, well, we just see what they got in their mind. I mean, the town used to have a police boat and that whole area, I've been here a long time. I mean, they parked all over that place out there. So back in the day when it was there, I mean, you could park anywhere with no problems. Now it's getting tight.
Yeah, I used to put boat in right there at the end of Davis Street, right?
Mm-hmm. Used to be another boat ramp where Macy's was a long time back.
Yeah, since I've been working here, I put a boat in the end of Sailfish.
Yeah, so I mean, it's changing around here, and we need to move on with it. But how long would it take? I know that we have to get approval, but on some of the pieces that, like these 800 block tracks and stuff like that, I mean, is there any way to get that, possibly any remote chance by summer? I mean, like the permitting process and all that stuff, if it were to go through, or is that out of the question?
Well, I think the only permit, the only thing that there are some logistics. Not sure they need to be discussed here because of the agencies we would need to talk to. And I would hate to dedicate it, but there are some logistics with that could hinder it, but if they didn't, you know, I'm not seeing much restriction to a pathway to get it done. We own the property. The CAMA permits we can achieve. And like I said, we only have to comply with our own stormwater requirements because each one of these sites in development is less than an acre. So we're the ball's really in our court outside of one issue, and that issue I think is primarily that picture that's on there right now in the 800 block. That one in the little section would be the only one that I would have questions about, saying we could get that done, because there may be one permit that we would have to get. So
I guess, let me is it too early to take a portion of what we have today to the Board of Commissioners?
I don't.
Or put it on the agenda?
You mean too early?
Well, I mean, could we move on with an agenda item at a board meeting, in your opinion? Or do we need to do some more legwork on it?
You can move forward. I can find out what I consider to be the last piece, but there was no tasker for me to do the last piece. The tasker was not to get this prepared or to find out what we would need as far as permitting and that kind of stuff in order to carry it forward to the board, because we don't have any truth. There's no, I would think at this point you would want to have a true, accurate document for what you're going to put on the ground before you carry it to the board. Now I don't know what the logistics are or what the legal realms are of this, but in my mind, I would believe that before we started spending money to that effect, we would need to get approval from the board itself.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Well, we could, go ahead, Mr. Hewitt.
I was just going to say, this is a conceptual plan with the price tag on it. If a commissioner wants to move forward with making that 800 blocks to the one or the two, you need to take it to the board and have the board to appropriate the money and direct the staff to make that happen, which would include the permitting effort, the contract, you know, the relationship with the contractor, that kind of thing. So, I'm not being oversimplistic, but, you know, in my mind, that one is probably a lot, it's more realistic to make this 800 block set of parking spaces happen fairly quickly. I hesitate to use quickly because Tim mentioned permitting, but before you can start on that, I got to have some walking around money in order to put that into play.
Well, we got a commissioners meeting coming up in a week and a half, give or take. We can put on the agenda, if it's not too late, put on the agenda an update from this committee with our recommendation. And Brian, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but make a recommendation that the board approve us moving to the next phase of getting, I guess, solid estimates on it. And then I guess we'd have to come back to the board in March to say, here's what it's going to cost, and them appropriate the dollars, or would we go ahead and have them appropriate some money for doing some of the legwork before we get the final estimate?
Here's where I am with it. If you want to do it, put it in front of the commissioners for them to take down, bite the apple and move out with the project. Go ahead and tell them to appropriate the whole money, the whole estimate, and, you know, task the staff to make that happen. If they don't want to do it, then they don't appropriate the money. But going back and forth and wishy-washy in it, you know, is a waste of our time.
Well,
that's the way I feel about it.
Well, no, I agree with you. I'm still trying to get the lay of the land of how town works and commissioners work. And I mean, if I was in corporate life like I used to be, I'd say, let's just move on, get the money and go. But we're dealing with a board of commissioners here. So I think, to your point, we'll go back on the agenda. We'll put forward a recommendation to do all three of these items, the first three tasks that Tim gave us the information on, and ask for permission or appropriation of funds, go ahead and move forward.
Well, but I believe that Brian was asking about the 800 block there. That was the only thing I was addressing.
Do you want to look at all of them, or Brian?
Because there's a difference between the 800 block and the streets.
Yep.
The streets, you're definitely gonna have to have designs and specs prepared by an engineer before you go out, and that has to go through a more formal bid process.
Okay.
The staff can chaperone the execution of the 800 block because just because of some of the you don't need to have the hardcore engineering designs and specs in order to go to contract with it, to go through the contracting issue.
Thank you.
The 800 block one, you're still going to have some, you know, professional work done, but that does not need to have the engineer on the tip of the spear.
Okay. So
I agree with that. I don't think we should take the streets at this time. I think we should just take the little slivers of land that we really couldn't do anything else with to the board at this time.
Okay.
That are feasible to get done hopefully fairly quick.
And if I may pile on there, it has been my understanding that is the intent of these properties here from the day that it was procured, was for it to become parking. There is no, that's a fact, that at some point in time. So it's been my understanding, subject to a review of the record and me corrected, that is what the intent that this property was secured for.
The board that looked at the last, the information that was provided from the planning department to them from the other parking committee as to stuff that needed to be done, one of the primary things was preparing and putting in signs that would point to future use of that property, which is why it's down there. Because we were, those avenues, Reserve Avenue 11A and 12 were also part of that, but the main focus, that came up more than once, and it was always the belief of those parking committees that that was the use of that property that's on the screen right now, which is the large block in the 800. The only other thing I would say is, and it goes back to comments that we have, is that this is going to have to go through a normal process, and possibly, and don't hold me to this, but my thinking is that we're going to have to do a quick rezone there for permitted use. We may or may not, but that would be quick. It would be quick and easy.
We've had that conversation, and I'm in disagreement with that statement because of this is a town utility, and of course that's subject to an opinion, but I don't agree that this property will have to be rezoned in order to make it a parking space.
And Mr. Hewitt's right. The ordinance book does allow the town to utilize that property, and it does give the town an ability to waive those requirements. So,
Are you talking 800 block, Tim, or are you talking up the street in between the avenue, Brunswick Avenue and Ocean Boulevard?
no, that street, those would not have to be rezoned.
But they street right away.
No, those, but but David's right. Me and him's had this conversation, and I only wanted to I threw that out there, probably threw that out there prematurely. I probably shouldn't have done it, but I just didn't want something to be a glitch and us not have some thought in the back of our head that it could be an issue. But David is correct that utilities and town uses are exempt under that zoning code. At least we exempted it in our code anyway.
I got one other question now that I'm looking at that. Clearing that site, would that hold, are we just clearing where the parking spaces would actually go?
I think that's a decision you'll have to make.
I think maybe, Brian, you'd probably, look at it if it's got some pretty trees or something other, but I definitely think that we ought to kind of manicure it or something other where it have a neat appearance.
Yeah, I didn't know, clear it and re-landscape it.
I think you're gonna have to clear a bunch of it, because where those parking spots are, what actually happened, when Hugo came and they cleared the right of way, they just pushed the sand over on it. So there's a big hump of sand where those parking spaces are. It's about waist high. So that's gonna have to be graded. And so, it's gonna be graded toward the bulkhead. And then, of course, if you push dirt up on a tree, it'll probably kill a bunch of it.
Yeah, I think we probably just should include landscaping it all back.
What we did when we actually added in the cost estimates, we added a cost to clear cut the whole thing, knowing full well that was probably a plenty more than we had to do.
Right.
But, we included some in there. It didn't include landscaping specifically. I've developed a reputation over the years as, the mad bush hogger. But what we did, when we costed it out, it was done with basically clear cut and removing all the root mat, but we do not think that we're gonna have to do that there. But that's what we did when we got cost estimates.
And you're most likely gonna have to do exactly what y'all just said in order to comply with our own stormwater ordinance, because we're not gonna be able to sheet flow water at a rapid pace off into the AEC.
Right.
So we're gonna end up building a bulkhead, and we're probably gonna have to do just like you normally would for our stormwater. We're gonna have to try to keep that harsh material, especially from the parking area, out of the AEC.
I just want to be able to answer questions when we knock it all down, if we're going to put something back to grass or whatever, because we can't just, dead sand obviously would blow into the marsh, but just a question.
But I think back to the answer on it, if y'all want to move forward with doing something on that, it needs to come from the commissioner side of it. I know that the staff prepared the estimates for it, but the suggestion or the placing on the agenda, it needs to be a commissioner agenda.
Got it.
I mean, a commissioner proposed agenda item to move forward like that.
All right. So Brian, you and I will co-sponsor that one on the agenda and give an update to the commissioners with a recommendation we move forward on the 800 block. How about 764?
Yeah, all of those little pieces through
Okay.
there.
So 800 and 764.
I would, everything but those two Brunswick Avenue street, or
I'm sorry.
everything but the cut-through streets I would put
Okay,
on.
so Avenue A,
I would,
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I would probably, I don't know, Woody.
well, I'm looking at suggestions.
Let's do one at a time and,
All right.
or, you know, all those are similar down that way, so maybe just do that for now.
Mr. Town
We're
Manager.
talking about 800, the 800 block group,
Yeah, it's about the 800 and the
64.
Yeah.
My fear is the more we lump in, if you gotta push back on Avenue A, it would shut down from proceeding with those or vice versa.
Or either just show them your plan there and let them pick the steps if they wanted to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to get
You
some
know,
public
explain it,
feedback.
It's pretty simple to do the 800 block there and, you know, so well, our plans are moving, maybe moving on in the future, maybe if they prioritize what they want to do, send us in the direction, there you go.
All right. Well, we'll just, Mr. Evans, with your help at the Board of Commissioners meeting, we'll present these charts. We'll say at least we want to do the 800 block. If the board has the 800 and 764 block, if the board would like for us to look at Avenue A or whatever, we can have that conversation too. All right?
That's fine. You can change it up if we need to.
All right. So I will get up with somebody from Premium Parking and see if I can get them to come to our next meeting and give us a presentation. Mr. Hewitt?
I was just gonna say, can we, and I know Brian was speaking to this, the only thing I wrote down was Bridgewater Corner and the discussion about Jordan Boulevard, NC State, Hayden, Stanziel. I didn't capture it as far as what the takedown, bring back on what the committee wanted to do there. I know he,
On Jordan Boulevard and Bridgeview?
yeah, because we got to the point where it sounded like we went off.
Yeah, I was going to circle, thank you, I was going
Okay.
to circle back to that one. What are you suggesting on Jordan?
I'd recommend that, that we lay our hands on that plan that was done, because, I mean, it was done before I got here.
Just stand up against the wall.
And I hadn't seen it for a while, but
Yeah, and I got to
it's not on the agenda.
yeah.
You know, so people that are out there, I would say let's resurrect that, bring it back to the committee, review it. At the same time, Tim talked about, can we look at, you know, what the original boat ramp plan was, and see if we can't lay our hands on some of the details from the minutes, you know, bring back some of the history on that, and perhaps do a review on Jordan Boulevard that's, you know, it's got everybody's head on it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we'll
And
put,
that'll at least baseline that information for everybody that's on the committee.
All right.
'Cause, you know, Jeremy probably hadn't looked at it from a perspective of this committee. It's been a while since I looked at it, that too.
It may be as simple as just having somebody look at it in today's terms, because like Tim said, that may not even be able to happen now, but
Well, I know that
maybe a
there's,
shot from the hip like you did here would be the best way to.
I'm sorry, I was paying attention to this.
But like, we can take that plan, and I know that that was probably before Jordan Boulevard Pavilion was built. There's probably other elements of it that have been, that's a conceptual plan, and when you start doing stuff, the realities of what gets done are often, most of the time, they're not exactly what's put on the plan. So we could, from the staff side, we can take that and we can add the things that have transpired since then, and just maybe have a skull session as an agenda item on
I think that's good.
This plan, it tells you down the bottom, it's only a graphic, you can't use it for nothing. It basically reads like, it's basically what I just gave you for the other areas. It says, this site plan is a graphic representation and should be utilized for discussion purposes only. It says the plan components may change based upon regulatory approvals and field conditions. And I can promise you that there's no way you can get 122 parking places in there, which is what they've designated. It's not the scale. And we've done some other things already that you know what I mean? What's interesting is that the plan itself is utilizing the right-of-way area that belongs to DOT under the bridge. Do you understand? What I'm saying is that this is just a pretty picture.
Yep.
Always has been.
Well,
I say we don't use it and
we use it as a
start
starting
from
point.
scratch.
Maybe do like you were talking about, Brian.
Maybe it needs to
When
be
you want
thrown
buy the
away.
Property, yes, so like you've done right there, and then we can see what we've got to work with, and then try to come up. I just
All right,
shoot
so
stuff
look,
out there.
so let's
I
put,
do know that right there was somewhere like in 2006 or before the sewer, because at one time they were talking about building a walkway over the top of the sewer lift stations to do a park over on the east side.
all right, so for the agenda for what is this? This February, for March's meeting, thank you. We'll put on there, as David called it, more of a skull session on the Jordan Boulevard plan. We'll look closer at what's there, discuss it, debate it, see where we want to go as far as a recommendation to the board to maybe do some more, spend some money for some design work. And then the March meeting, David, you're going to talk to the Wildlife Commission, go back and look at some previous notes and so we can find out the history of the boat ramp. So we'll have that on the agenda. Paid parking, we'll get somebody here to do a presentation on paid parking, and I'll be responsible for that one. And then we'll give an update at the February Board of Commissioners meeting on the work that Mr. Evans put together. And then, Brian, you and I will make a recommendation that at a minimum we do 800 block and 764. If the commissioners want us to look at other areas that Mr. Evans presents, we'll talk about those too.
Yeah, I would think we could add them at that time.
Say again?
I think we could add them at that time if we
Yeah,
needed to.
yeah, we can. All right, so does that, bless you, does that sound good for our March agenda? Ms. Town Clerk, you got all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Hewitt?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right. While it's not on the agenda, I like to go around the room just to see if anybody's got any comments, suggestions, concerns, feedback they might have gotten from property owners. I know Brian and I both have been called from and emailed from people stating either concerns or questions or things like that. So I'll just go around the room and just see, anybody got anything to add before we adjourn this meeting. So, Mr. Evans?
I have one thing that's completely off, kind of on key, but off key. And I guess when I was doing these things, I was wondering exactly what, by adding these additional parking areas like the 800 block or say something in Avenue A, what our actual outcome were we trying to achieve with those Are we trying to create more parking places so we can have paid parking? Are we trying to create more parking places to reduce the number of parking, reduce the parking along right-of-ways and that sort of thing? I was just wondering what our achievables were out of the work that we're doing. That was just what was coming to my mind, because Avenue A, for instance, we can add 25 parking places there. And it was brought up that, you know, the fact that there's 100 cars parked around in that block, and can we find more parking? Well, when I'm doing that, I come to the conclusion that if we add 25 more parking places there without taking some other course of action, all you've done is add 25 more parking places, and people will continue to park in exact same locations that you said you would like to find more parking, because that's happening. So I was just wondering what the achievables were, and it says that we'd have a more defined product at the end, because if people believe that that's what we're trying to achieve and it's not, and we could end up in a discussion trying to explain why we spent money.
I can answer that. I think, it's just my opinion, but that's all I got. A lot of right-of-way parking is disappearing. 50, I don't know how many houses were put up this year and or last year or the year before that, but I can tell you there's been a lot. So if you take 50 or 100, 150, 200 homes in the last 4 years being built, that's, I don't know how many parking spaces that was available for somebody to park in at some point. So as houses are built, the right-of-way parking is disappearing. The biggest sole complaint that I get from residents of this island, by bar none, is right-of-way parking. And somebody parked here, somebody parked there, they shouldn't have done that, they shouldn't be parking along the marsh, they shouldn't be doing this or doing that. And I think the town ultimately has the task to designate a finite number of parking spaces, and at that point in time, my opinion is that the right-of-way parking would be, you would park in those parking spaces, or you would be hooked up to a truck and escorted out of here. Whether you park for free or pay to park is irrelevant to me, but I don't think you should have the ability to come on the island and just pick a spot in somebody's yard and park, and leave your trash, and park in the marshes down some of the side streets. I mean, we've all seen it, where the water would actually run underneath your car if we had a major high tide or something, because some of our streets even flood on that. And that's my opinion, and my opinion only, that's why we would be doing this. It's the paid parking proponent of it, and I'll just go ahead and give you my opinion on that, because that's what I'm put up here to do, and I need some feedback from the community. But I don't know how you would ask the residents, only the residents and property owners of this island, to pay for this expense, because they're not the ones that's actually using it. For the most part. I'm not saying that somebody doesn't leave their canal lot and drive up and park in a parking space and use it, and all of these towns that have done it have made some provisions for the residents to use their parking facilities, whether it be a annual pass or free to the residents or whatever. But I just, that's just my opinion. I mean, I don't think it's wrong, at least wrong to at least look at the possibility of just, even if we just cover the basic expense of establishing these lots or whatever we end up doing, or if we do anything, that we try to figure out how to pay for it without raising taxes or making the residents and property owners of the island to swallow another pill. I just don't think it's right. And we're not the ones that's benefiting from it, because every renter, every property owner, they already have a place to park. If they're parking correctly and they're on their properties, and they already have a designated parking spot. If they're overrunning that, then, I mean, they're gonna have to pay too. But I don't think that's happening a whole lot, but it does occasionally. I've seen it. So that's my opinion. I'm sitting up here because it's Friday and I got nothing else to do. But I would like everybody's input on this. I mean, if we had 100 people in here, it'd suit me, but you guys got to put it in writing and get it to us, and it'll be read. So
Yep.
that's my opinion.
This is Woody Tyner. I think Mr. Evans does bring up a good point, and I've thought about it myself. Okay, we're creating these extra parking spaces. Is it to address the extra influx of people that we are expecting once the 2 big RV parks are completed, and both of them are getting closer to completion every day? Is it that? You know, obviously, some folks may not want to spend extra money for parking for people who are not, they're just coming over for the day. I do think when we look at paid parking, we do need to look at, can we do paid parking in some of these new spots to pay for the expense of what we're looking at? So I do think Mr. Evans raises a very good question. What's your end result? If it's just to maximize the number of parking spots and that's it, that's okay. Because I mean, we are expecting a big flow of people, you know, when these RV parks open up. So trying to address that and get people out of parking in the right of ways and getting them parking off the marshes and things, I think that's a good goal to go after. It does cost money to do that, but then I also think we need to be looking at paid parking and see, can we charge for those spots to help recoup some of the expenses. Yeah, I've had people from Supply and Charlotte emailing me and saying, look, you know, you wouldn't have people at the beach. You wouldn't have people here at the beach if it wasn't for Charlotte and all their businesses. And I mean, you can argue all that stuff all day long. We need some extra money to help take care of the expenses of having people on this island, especially in the summertime when it swells. I mean, we need extra policing to go on for parking. We need, you know, picking up extra trash. We need people to help us with some of those expenses. So that's why we need to look at paid parking. But Tim, I do think you raise a very excellent question. What's the end result?
Yeah, my point being, once again, is that if the deliverable is not what the citizens believe it is going to be, for instance, like, we do have right-of-way parking that's going away every day, and if you don't want people parking in the right-of-way, or it's an issue, then as that parking in the right-of-way goes away, then that issue goes away a little bit at a time. So if you're delivering something to the citizens, and their belief is that they're going to get relief from those folks who are parking in those right-of-ways, and all you're actually doing is adding 100 more parking places, because once those 100 parking places fill up, the people who didn't have nowhere to park before, who would leave the island, would then take the available right-of-way areas. Mm-hmm. So, but if your intent is to provide more parking for those folks that we know are coming, and if that is the intent, then I think that's justifiable and a plan. That's my point, mm-hmm. is to not make the deliverable something that it's not.
Yep.
I guess is the best way, is what I'm saying. Because in my opinion, if you had 100 parking places down there at Avenue A, unless you did something about the right-of-way parking, you'd have 100 cars parked in the same place they were on that picture that we used.
Yep. Once
the 100 filled up, that next 100 would fill up.
Good point. Thank you. Mr. Clemens?
The only thing I got to say is, and I could be totally wrong, but I think a few years back, before they ever even bought the property, we were talking about focusing more. Everybody always felt like all the target focus was always on the east end, and it was putting a burden on those people down there. And that was part of the reason I was thinking that we went after buying extra property anyway, to try to add some additional parking to the west end and relieve some of the congestion that was on the east end. But you know, that was even before the campgrounds and everything that we've got now, so you know that, could be possible, just like Tim says, you know, we can add those, and we're still gonna have those situations where somebody's parked in somebody's yard, but at least we'd be making the effort to utilize what we have. And that's about all I've got to say.
All right, thank you. Ms. Rhonda?
I do feel like the areas that we have chosen to proceed with in the 700 and 800 block are going to be some of their simpler areas to get developed for parking, probably the quicker ones. Seems like that's going to be the better ones.
Okay. Commissioner Murdoch?
I think I covered it, but I want to pile on a little bit. I think we're gonna have all of these issues, including what I spoke about at the people wanting to get rid of the cars in the right of way. We're definitely gonna have to handle a larger amount of visitors and traffic. So I mean, it's all true, guys. I mean, it's a problem that's getting bigger. Mm-hmm. So, and we're just gonna have to deal with it. We're gonna have to do something. Okay. So I'm open to suggestions, anybody. So I'll just stay with that.
Yeah, and I want to echo what Brian said earlier. For those y'all listening on Facebook, we need your feedback. So if you put it in writing, you can send it to the town clerk. Her email address is heather@hbtownhall.com. We need to get on the public record, you know, folks' comments about parking, and so please, please, please give us your feedback. That helps drive where we're going. So, Ms. Ferguson?
Yes, sir. I just say it's been a productive meeting, and you know, all of this planning's linked together. We're about to do the Parks and Rec Master Plan update. Parking will be a part of that, so everything's linked together. The better we plan, the better off we'll be in the future.
Yep. Chief Dixon?
Yeah, I believe we're headed in the right direction, and I may open a can of worms with this comment, and I hope I do not, but with adding all of this parking, we also need to consider crosswalks for getting people across the boulevard safely. Mm-hmm. So just something to keep in the back of our minds for future.
Thank you. Town Manager Hewitt?
It occurs to me that Reserve 12 and Reserve A, those templates will also apply to Delane Street. I know that that was not on the agenda to look at, but it's the same kind of street. It's just, you know, back further east. And I only mentioned that because I have had, that's actually a coquina street now that has through traffic on it. But the characteristics, the dimensions are exactly the same. It's just further east, a cut through from Brunswick Avenue West to Ocean Boulevard. And I mention it because over the last several years, I've had occasion to have comment from one of the property owners there. They wanted it closed because traffic on it, just, you know, the dust from the coquina bothered them. But then I have also had, more recently, a query from a property owner there that wanted to see what all was involved in paving it. And that was, you know, I gave them the petition process. So I just wanted to point that out for, you know, the committee's benefit, that actually when Tim and I were looking at it, I looked at it and I went, is this the road that we're supposed to be looking at? But it was not. Just wanted to make the committee aware of that.
And I apologize. You say Delaney Street?
Yeah, it's Delanne.
Okay.
I think that's the way you spell it.
Okay. All right. Once again, thank y'all for taking time being here this morning. I think we got an agenda for our March meeting set up. Mr. Evans, I want to thank you and Ms. Rhonda for the work y'all did on these plans. And once again, I just want to thank everybody for taking time to be here. And lastly, anybody that's listening, If you got feedback for us, we really need it. We'd like to get it as a public comment for our next meeting, so please send it to the town clerk. We'd appreciate it. All right, I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, y'all have a good day. Thank you.